Okay, Rabbosai, good evening. Today we're learning Maseches Nazir Daf and Zayin. We're learning a new parak. This parak is called Shnei Nazirim. And the very first parak deals with a practical case scenario where it seems that some tuma did take place. We're just not sure if it applied to Nazir number 1 or Nazir number 2. So let's start with this new Mishnah. Shnei Nazirim. Sha'amar lehen echad. A third person says to the two Nazirim, hey, Ra'isi echad mikem shenitma. I saw that one of you, who are definitely Nazirim, they're both Nazir, but one of you became Tameh. Ve'eni yodea ezi mikem. He calls out in Bezdin. Like we tell our kids all the time, like, if you tattletale, like other people, like you become, snitches get stitches. Like you don't want to be that guy. So this guy is that guy. He walks into Bezdin. He's like, I saw one of the Nazirim become Tameh, but he didn't know which one became Tameh, Reuven or Shimon. He wasn't sure. So what happens? The Gemara says, because of this suffix, megalchen umavin korban tuma v'korban tara. They have to bring a korban on their conclusion of tuma, and they also have to bring a korban at the end of their tahara, when they're done with their nazirus. And here are the conditions that help us to check off all the boxes. V'omer, fourth line of the new parak. Im ani hu tameh. If in fact I'm the nazir who became tameh, then korban tuma shali v'korban tara shalach. No problem. That's clean, crystal clean. That's simple. V'imanihu hatahor. If I'm the one who's tahor, then korban tahara shali v'korban tuma shalach. No problem. So that's the first set of korbanos that are going to be brought, which will check off a couple of boxes. Then v'sofrim shloshim yom, they finish up the nazirus and mevi and korban tara, and then they bring the final set of korbanos. And here the Gemara says the conditions work like this. The omer, the person bringing the one set of korbanos will say, im anihu hatameh. If in fact I am the one who was tameh, then who is tameh, then korban tuma that was brought earlier, that's sheli. The korban tara shalach. V'zeh korban tarasi. Then in the first set of korbanos, I was the one who was tameh, and you already had your korban tara, and this one's mine. And v'im ani hu hatahor. If in fact I'm the one who's tahor, then korban tara shali v'korban tuma shalach. Korban tarascha, because this I'm tahor now, and you were tameh before. This we'll work out all the korbanos. Basically, the Gemara says. So we bring two sets of korbanos with conditions in order to check off all of the boxes. The Gemara says this is a very, very odd case, because we know that there are times where a suffix of tuma is applicable, and sometimes where a suffix of tuma is not applicable. And the Gemara says 2/3 of the way down, Katani, we learned in our Mishnah, Shnei Nazirim Shamar Lahem Ra'isi Echad Mikem Shenit Mavenu De'ez Mikem Ve'amai. Why in that case would we even conclude that there's any tuma at all? After all, Kol Safek Tuma Birshus Yachid Mehecha Yalfin Allah. How do we learn the halachos of what happens when there's a Safek Tuma in a Rishus HaYachid? We learn it from the world of Sota. The Gemara says Misota. Masota Boel Veniveles. Just like in regards to Sota, we're only talking about two people. There's the man and the woman. Af Kol Safek Tuma Birshus HaYachid Kigondi Ika Beitrei. That means that any case scenario when we only have two people, that's considered a suffix in a case of a yichidim. Aval hacha shnei nazirim v'hai dekai gabehon. But here we don't have two people. We have three people. Hatzlasa. That's havale safik tuma birshus harabim. V'chol safik tuma birshus harabim sveiko tahor. The Gemara brings a beautiful question on our Gemara and our Mishnah. Our Mishnah had said that in our case of three people, two nazirim and one witness, that case where there's an aspect of safik of who's tameh, we went through the whole rigmarole to figure out who's going to be yotzei which korbanos. Says the Gemara, what are you talking about? It's safik tuma birshus harabim. How do we know it's Birshus HaRabim? Because by Sota there's two. This is three. This isn't Yachid anymore. It's very unique that we define Yachid and Rabim here based on 2 versus 3. Shtickle Chiddush, because normally we would have said, like Hilchos Shabbos, Birshus HaYachid, it's private domain. That's not what it means. It means that as long as there's 3 or more people, that's Tuma Birshus HaRabim. So the Gemara says our case should never have started because it's subject Tuma Birshus HaRabim. The Gemara gives a Nukimta, 3 lines from the bottom. Amar Rabba bar Rav Huna. Be'omer Ra'isi Tuma Shenizrika Benechem. I wasn't there when it happened. I was not in your Dalet Amos. I saw a sheret, an arm of a human being, whatever it was, something that's going to be matameyu. I saw that it fell between the two of you, and I'm just not sure who it was closer to. Therefore, there are only 2 people present when the suffix tuma happens. That is a suffix tuma b'rshus hayachid, and suffix tuma b'rshus hayachid is in fact tameh. So that explains our case. And Amar Ravashi Deka Nami, this in fact is definitely the case as we turn to the top of Nun Zayin Amid Beis. How do we know that this is true? Because the Gemara says the Katani, The Eini Yodea Ezemikem, I don't know which one of you. And the Baalei Tosfos here at the top clarifies how this language is a raya to what we're talking about. We're trying to prove that the witness wasn't standing there when it happened. So here's what Tosfos says: Dibur hamaskal dekatani ve'eni yodea, demashmo shelo no dalo me'olam mishum delo hava bahem. He says he never knew. It's not like he knew and forgot. He never knew. He saw the arm flying at these two men who he knew were Nazirim. He saw it through the window from 100 feet away. He knows one of them is Tameh. He just doesn't know which one. So the Gemara brings a raya from the language when it says Ve'eni yodea ezi mikem. I don't know. I never knew, meaning I didn't witness it with my own two eyes in detail. And therefore the Gemara says Shma mina, that this is in fact the case that the third person wasn't standing with the previous two, and therefore the case of our Mishnah is where the two people who are Nazirim are in fact in a state of Safek Tuma, and therefore we have to go through all of the different korbanos and all the different kavanos as listed in our Mishnah. And that's Sugya 1 for the night. We'll be stopping 3 lines from the bottom of the page. Let's continue at the next 2 dots. We had said Megalchen Umivian. If you look back in the Mishnah with which we started today on Nun Zayin Amud Aleph, we had said that in this case of Safek Tuma, we said Megalchen Umivian. Okay, now the Gemara has a problem with this. Ve'amai. Dilma, perhaps, says the Gemara, Lav Tmein Inun Ve'ka'avid Hakafa. How can you give a haircut to a Nazir when there is a Safek? What's the problem with giving a Nazir a haircut when he's a Safek? It's a Safek D'oraisa, because he's not allowed b'tiglachas. So how did it evolve that in our Mishnah we have 2 Nazirim? One of them is we don't know who. One of them is a Tamei Meis, but we don't know who. How can you give both of them haircuts? It's a Safek D'oraisa. So Amar Shmuel, what is our case? B'isha v'katan. We're dealing with a case of a woman or of a child who doesn't even have a din of hakafas harosh. And therefore, they take the razor and all the hair on the head is removed. Done.
Did anybody talk about why it says Nazirim? Like why it's...
It could be... No, it could be the katan. Even if it's multi-gender, it doesn't. It could be a mother and a child. Nazir. Just plural. If it's male, female, plural, it still would be Nazir.
Yeah, right.
Says the Gemara, okay, but v'lukma begadol, like why wouldn't you just say that it's a gadol? And v'hakafas kol harosh lo shma hakafa. And the isser of lo sakifu pe'as roshchem is not an isser when you shave all of the hair off of your head, but rather when you leave whatever, like a huge step, whatever the unique haircut would be of the isser of hakafas harosh. When I was growing up as a little kid, I always thought that what we used to call the step haircut was an isser deraisa. Maybe it is, I don't know. But what they did is they left the mushroom on the top and they like shaved down like a perfect line. They shaved everything else gone. That I always thought that was Nisr Deraisa because one of the basketball players in Ida Crown had that haircut. I'm like, no, I'm not attacking. I was just saying he had that haircut. It might be mutter. I don't know. That was always my assumption about Kafas Harosh, is that it was the Isser was in and of itself like the sharp. I could be wrong. I don't know. So says the Gemara, why is it that we didn't establish this case with Gedolim, but assume that it is talking about a Gadol, but it's okay for them to get this kind of haircut? Why is it okay for a Nazir B'Safek to get this kind of haircut? Because this isn't the haircut that's Asr. Hakafas kol harosh lo shma hakafa. That's not called creating a circle around your head. But midelo mukim lahachi, by virtue of the fact that Shmuel did not establish our case like this, and rather he established our case b'isha v'katan, Shma mina, it implies that according to Shmuel, that kasavar Shmuel akafas kol harosh shma hakafa, that the iser de oraisa akafas kol harosh is removing all of your hair with a razor. That's what the Gemara says. And that was the sheet of Shmuel that our Mishnah is talking about, a case of Isha v'katan. Now, Mar Zutra masni laha shmaisa de Shmuel aseifa. Mar Zutra says that this answer of Shmuel that we're talking about an Isha or a Katan wasn't taught in our case, but was rather taught in a different case. This is our next Mishnah, another language here of Seifa, which refers to our next Mishnah. We're about a quarter of the way down in Nun Zayin Amud Beis. The Gemara says, Nazir shahaya tamei b'safek umuchlat b'safek. So we have a Nazir. This was similar to the case that we learned last night, the more complex case where he had to wait 120 days. This is a case where we have 3 things in the mixing bowl. We have a Nazir Vadai, Safek Tumas Meis, and Safek Mitzora. So we had said yesterday, Ochel B'Kodshim Ma'achar Shishim Yom. After 60 days, he's able to get rid of the tumas mace and the tumas mitzora status. Umegaleach daled tiglachos. He has to do 4 haircuts over the course of that time. We're not digging into that now. We'll dig into that in the next Mishnah. But says the Gemara, how can that be v'hakavid hakafa? And it's over there that the Gemara says that even though it's true that he's a vaday Nazir, and the tumas mace and the tumas mitzora is safek, and many of the haircuts lechora should be usher for the Nazir, because what's triggering many of those haircuts is a safek status, but it's against the backdrop of Nazir d'oraisa. So says the Gemara, Amar Shmuel be'isha v'katan, same answer as before. And now the Gemara gets into whether or not other people giving you such an usher haircut, who is held accountable. It's a fascinating Gemara, third of the way down. Amar Rav Huna, hamakif es hakatan, a person who gives a haircut to a katan, violating, or a haircut that would be the violation of hakafas harosh, harei hu chayev. The person giving the haircut is held accountable. Remember, the child is the one getting the haircut, and the adult is the one giving the haircut. The makif, the one who causes for it, not the nikaf, not the recipient. The makif is chayev.
Why was the cotton an exception then? I thought I was just missing that. Up until we said be isha cotton, right? So is it us or is it not us?
I'm not even going to answer your question. We're just going to learn the next couple lines. I read this piece of Gemara like 5 times. Yeah, it's good. It's good that you did, because I would have told you to wait until now. What?
Because usually the 3 shota, isha, and katan are usually together.
Cheresh shota v'katan. Cheresh shota v'katan, not isha shota v'katan. Yeah, an isha, and Evan, and a katan are put into a category of not being as liable in halacha as well, not liable. That's the wrong word in regards to mitzvos aseh, but not here. Okay, let's look at Rav Huna.
About the person who does it being a chayev.
You got to see these. You just got to see this machlokas, and then we'll jump in. We'll jump in a little bit deeper once we've learned the basics. Amar Rav Huna, hamakif has a katan areu chayev. If I give a haircut, an usher haircut to a katan, chayev. Amar le Rav Ada bar Ava le Rav Huna, vididach man megalech lahon. Your kids, who gave them this haircut? What does that imply from the Gemara? It implies from the Gemara that their hair was completely shaved down. Take a look at Tosfos. Dibur hamaskal vididach. 5-6 Tosfosim down. Tosfos says, Dibur hamaskal vididach man megalach lahon. Shera banim kitanim. He saw his children. Migulachim roshem im peosehem. Their heads were completely shaved down. Omar le, Rav Huna says back to Rav Ada bar Ava, if you want to know who gave my kids the haircuts, it's Chova. Chova was his wife. Probably not a name we should be giving our children, but nevertheless, it was the name of his wife. So,
Chova means abnegation.
It does, but this was her first name. This was her first name. So Chova was married to Rav Huna, and Chova's wife gave this haircut to the children. Says the Gemara that Rav Ada bar Ava opened his mouth and said, "Tikberinun Chova libanea." Is she trying to bury her children? Kulhu shane de Rav Ada bar Ava lo ekayim lazar le Rav Huna. When he opened his mouth and said that phrase, he created a reality in the world whereby the children of Rav Huna did not live. There's an additional word here of Chova, that he might have gotten remarried to another woman. And if you look at Tosfos here, this is actually a subtext, a subtitle of Vididach, Dibur Hamaschil, Chova Tikberinhu Lebaneha Di Isura Ka'avda. She's doing something wrong. And Kulu Shane V'chule Kishgaga Sheyotes Milifne Hashalit. It's like when the ruler slips out, he says that person should be killed. And he was saying it a little bit like just kind of having a conversation. Next thing we know, his head's rolling down the hill. So here and Hirsch texted me earlier today. He's like, what's with this Gemara? He learned the Daf already. He said, what's with this Gemara that Rav Ada bar Ava wasn't intended? Yes, but when you're a powerful person like Rav Ada bar Ava, your words matter. Not to insult any of us, but we're not Rav Ada bar Ava. Our words should matter, but they don't matter as much as his. Halavai. Then our tefillos would be accepted as well. It's a whole different level of people. So that's what happened when he said this. And now we have to understand the following. It seems to be that according to Rav Huna, there was nothing wrong with Chova giving this haircut to the kids, because the kids had no din of hakafa. Why not? We'll discuss a little bit. And if the kids have no din of hakafa and she doesn't have a din of iser hakafa, why can't she give them that haircut? This is Rav Huna. Let's just remember, this isn't like the family davening at the questionable synagogue. This is like a chashuv Talmud Chacham family. His kids were bald down to the scalp. They didn't want to worry about hair in the summer. No problem. Now, Michti, let's analyze a little bit more than halfway down. Both Tarvaihu, namely Rav Huna and Rav Ada bar Ava, Svira, they hold hakafas kol harosh shma hakafa. They both hold that hakafas shma, the cutting of all of the hair on the head, including the payas, is going to be aser. What then is the machlokas between them? Here's the machlokas. Rav Huna savar lo sakifu pe'as roshchem v'lo sashchis es pe'as ziganecha. The isser of removing all the hair on your head, coupled with the isser of removing your payas, kol sheyesh lo hashchasa, yesh lo hakafa. Anyone who has the isser of hashchasa, of destroying their payas, yesh lo hakafa. And therefore, bahani nashi, hoel v'lesnehu be'hashchasa, lesnehu nami be'hakafa. Women have no isser at all shaving their heads. No problem. Razor down to the scalp. No problem. Rav Ada bar Ab, that's what the Hasidim are like, see? So they solved the problem. Because what if there was a kapas harosh? That's no more shaving of the head, because that's a big problem. But we do make this divide according to Rav Huna. The Rav Ada bar Ava savar echad hamakif ve'echad hanikaf b'mashma. Whereas according to Rav Huna, and this wasn't listed explicitly in the Gemara, that because she doesn't have the isser, she can perform that haircut on other people. According to Rav Ada bar Ava, that's not true. That the makif and nikaf have the same status, meaning the woman cannot give the haircut to the child because the child is really not supposed to be getting this haircut. This is the machlokas between them. That Rav Huna held that it's true that the kid shouldn't get that haircut from another man, but to get that haircut from a woman is fine. Because the Gemara seems to imply it's only about the person giving the haircut, not about the recipient. And therefore, this 6-year-old child just shaved, no problem, because she's a she, no problem. The child could be a he, it doesn't matter. The isser is on the makif. But Rav Ada bar Ava extends this not only to the makif, but also to the nikaf, also to the recipient. And the iskash, and there's a comparison, makif lenikaf, of the one giving the haircut to the one who receives the haircut. Kol hecha de nikaf mechayev, makif nami mechayev. Since if the nikaf would be held accountable, the one getting the haircut would be held accountable, then the woman giving the haircut would be held accountable as well. V'hai katan ho v'hu gufe lav bar onshin hu de mechayev. Since this child has no onshin at all, makif nami lo mechayev. Very shver svara, right? I'm watching your reaction already. It's a shver svara, but the Gemara seems to say that, and we don't know exactly how old this child is. Maybe he's under the age of chinuch. So it says the Gemara. You can look at Tosfot Rashi at the bottom there. Mishum delav bar onshin hu de makif le nami lo mechayev ve'afilu ish.
So why do we have to have a whole story that it was his wife that did it? Why didn't he do it himself?
Well, he was just answering the question. He was just saying what happened. Zechova did it. Shver.
It wasn't her right. It was just he didn't think she was doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
So these are some of the primary sugyas in trying to figure out, like, let's say you go to Supercuts and the person's a guy and they're giving you a haircut. That's awesome. I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. So these halachos are very important. We have to make sure we understand. And there's also distinction sometimes between what the Gemara refers to as misparayim. It is scissors, but it probably is an equivalent to guards, and how short can it be, and all of those things all come up in the Meforshim right here. So we'll stop right here at Lema and pick up again in Mir Hashem tomorrow with Daf Nun Ches. Wishing you all a beautiful night.